Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Universal Church of Truth, starring myself, Hunter,
And Mary.
and Mary. Today we will be talking about Miss Marvel episode 5. Um, I also want to start out giving a shout out to Adam, the one guy who has commented to say that he does, in fact, watch these videos. He made a really good point that Mary is very smart and that I am here. And I want to thank him for being part of this journey and really understanding what's going on. Um, Anyway, back to the episode at hand. Mary, give me your general overall thoughts and feelings on this
Yeah,
episode.
man, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings. I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry
start
to hear that.
rambling, so at some point you might have to cut me off because, I
No,
just again, I just watched it.
I
So,
specifically want you to just keep talking about it.
okay, so I enjoyed watching it. Great. And I mean, there were certain things weren't perfect, but it was a very fast-paced, fun. You got kind of the flashback, which I think is very stylistically well done, and that was very different for Marvel. So I very much enjoyed watching the episode. But I'm so concerned now about where it's going. Have so many concerns. I have a lot of questions still because they didn't explain honestly much, a little bit, but they did not explain shit, which bothered me because I want to know. But the way it's kind of set up, it doesn't seem like they're going to, which upsets me a lot. We'll see. But if they do not explain her powers in this season, and I get maybe there's a season 2, like we talked about, or maybe they do it more in the Marvels. But it's honestly, that's been the plot for this series. There's been other great things about it, but that's been the plot, is figuring out what her powers are. So if we don't do that, that's kind of feel lame as hell to me. But okay, other concerns are time travel. Cool. I definitely called the time travel a long time ago, but whatever. I'll take a win on that. But it doesn't make sense the way it played out with what we know about time travel in the MCU at all. And it wasn't further explained because nothing was further explained. But it was cool. It was a cool little story there. Fun. But doesn't make sense. And also, is that where the second bangle is? Just lost in time? I don't. Anyway, separate question for down the road. But so that bothered me just in the sense of I don't understand what's going on. And then the clandestines kind of sucked at the end of the day, really bad. They already weren't great, and that was fine. But they really let the ball. So who's the villain? Damage control, lame. They haven't been around. And Kamran got powers, and his little hand kind of looked like his little hand in the comics kind of thing. So that was fun. I thought of you. So I don't know what he's doing. But I feel like it left it in a very weird spot, and I feel like it left it in a place where I'm very concerned, and honestly more concerned than normal. I get that that's an every time we get to the 5th episode kind of thing, concerned. But I'm open-minded, but I'm concerned. So I'm very conflicted because I liked it. It's not like I didn't like watching it. I'm like, because okay, because when the grandma was like, I don't know how this happened, but I'd like to think it's two people who fell in love and created. So it's like, okay, so we are we supposed to not care how it happened either? Is that what that's signaling? Because I do really care. It's what I want to know. So I'm a little frustrated in that regard. And more will come to me, but yeah, the initial thoughts are done.
I think all of that is valid. Um, I so first off, I did very much like a lot of this episode. Like you said, the first half of it being sort of a flashback, and they kind of play with the traditional Marvel intro logo again, make it look like an old newsreel. Like I thought all of that was really fun. I thought the flashback was handled really well. Um, but I also have a lot of similar concerns that you do. I almost feel like again, this is something that I feel like we're gonna end up saying for like every Marvel show that happens, but it really felt like they were forced to take two episodes and mush them together for this episode, and then we like didn't get a complete episode of either one,
Yeah,
if that
okay,
makes
yeah,
sense.
I was gonna say that. Did not feel, yeah.
Like it felt like that flashback episode could have been the flashback half of the episode could have been a full episode, and they could have
Okay.
expanded upon all of it, given us all of the background info that we were looking for, given us more clandestine history. All of that could have been a full episode, and then the whole second half with Kamala and yada 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 yada, that could have been another episode on its own, like expounding on the flashback. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. There's a lot left going into episode 6. And then
Yeah,
there's like that random thing with Bruno at the end, and like they blow up
I'm
Circle
telling you,
Q, and
there's always in these shows always so much left to do. It's like and it sounds like a broken record, but I do think this time, I think it's the most I feel like I have ever thought. Holy shit! Like this is you can't do shit, and that's part of why I think okay, there might be something season 2 weeks, whatever. I don't know, but you I don't know what's going on. And that was fun, and now it doesn't feel fun right now because I feel like they're gonna just be like, it's just something cool our family does, and it's oh my god, no, just tell me what it is then. Like I don't know.
I I will say that I still had fun with the episode. There were still scenes that I really liked. It felt like for as little explanation as it actually gave us, it also felt like a lot was happening, and a lot was happening really fast. And then at the end of the episode, all of the plot lines that were there going into the beginning of the episode were somehow still there, even though they gave us so much in that episode. Yeah, I don't know. And listen, I want to give it the benefit of the doubt and say like who knows? This could be like the greatest episode 6 in the history. Like we have no idea. I haven't seen it. It could play out really well, and I truly hope that it does. Um, and it could be that they wrap up a satisfying amount in the next episode and then end it with some sort of season 2 announcement, and then it's like, okay, so we like they wrote this knowing there'd be another season or something like that, and then that would make me feel a little bit better. But yeah, I don't know, like the I simultaneously wish we got to spend more time in the past, just because I was really enjoying that storyline, and I think that whole like first half of the episode was going brilliantly, and then there was just like a jarring transition halfway through. So I wish that we got to spend more time there, and then I just I don't know, man. It really truly like I was reconciling everything that was happening in my brain right up until the end, when it was suddenly like, oh, okay, so the clandestine just like disintegrated, and Kamran's mom like had that weird moment where she thought she was helping him but wasn't. I don't really know what that was about, and then she died, and then Kamran shows up at Circle Q, and we see Bruno for the first time, apparently just like doing his thing. Well, Kamala was gone, and he's suddenly part of it, but then Circle Q gets blown up, and Damage Control's the bad guy. I don't know. The main villain of Miss Marvel is Guy from No Way Home.
Yeah, and I think if the origin of her powers was going to be something they knew they weren't going to explain fully in this season series, whatever, I would have much preferred the kind of, I'm going to, for lack of a better term, like the classic high school, she gets her powers and she's trying to be the superhero, just kind of, without all that as the main plot. And then have the rest of it kind of underlying, and that kind of will drive the mystery forward. But this has been, for the most part, the main plot. Like, it feels like, so it's like,
Oh yeah, Especially because they took the coming of age high school stuff that I was specifically enjoying about the show for the first couple episodes, and they put it on the back burner so that they could deal with everything else, which I was totally fine with because it seemed like it was going really well. And then in this episode,
interesting. It's very interesting, and I want to know. And I mean, okay, there's time travel, but like, who's traveling? Oh, okay, we know who's travel time. That's the bad question.
That's a good. Glad you brought that up.
How, like, how does it have anything to do with the quantum realm? Why does it not make sense with what we know from Endgame to be the rules of time travel? Or if it does, what multiverse did we just fucking start? Or is there this endless loop in time, which is not exactly again what we know it's supposed to be? And it just okay. Part of the other issue is the people we would expect to be able to sit down with us and then explain it all are now dead. So Aisha's dead. Najma's now dead. She's just did her weird thing. And so those were the two people that could have been like, okay, here's exactly what's going on with the bangle, with why I had powers to shoot shit to Kamran. I don't know. Why could she just close it on her own? Like, what the... We know nothing about these people, and yet that seemed very important. So I'm
wondering how much Kamran. I mean, they've made it kind of clear that he's been a bit in the dark compared to like his family, but I'm wondering if maybe that's the route they go. Like next episode, he's talking to Bruno, and he like drops all of this knowledge on Bruno that he's for some reason like held back from Kamala. Like I don't know. I will say that the timeline thing is interesting. For the folks at home, just in case you're not up to speed, we're really confused by Endgame, or just sort of like our casual viewer who doesn't obsess over weird things like we do. Time travel in the MCU has since been clarified that it doesn't work in that like Back to the Future style where if you go in the past and you change something, it changes your future. All it does is it creates a new timeline. So hypothetically, if Kamala went back in time and was the one who saved her grandmother, then that would have created a new timeline as opposed to affecting the timeline that Kamala's been living in. That being said, for whatever reason, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, both of us have been saying, and I brought it up in previous episodes, storytelling wise, it really felt like that was the direction they were going this whole time. And deep down, I was like, I feel like Kamala is the Trail of Stars. I thought that when it happened, they might explain it more or like find a way around. Because I mean, if her powers are somehow connected to the quantum realm, or like we've been theorizing, if Nor is something, we don't really know how Nor works still. They could have found a way to say like, okay, yes, that's how time travel works, but Kamala is like a special exception because her abilities are connected to the quantum realm and something. Like, I would have taken a very loose explanation for the sake of.
That's the thing. We didn't even get loose explanations. They just kind of did it, and it was kind of like cool. Like, this is now another piece of the puzzle, but it's like, wait a minute, there's none of them. You can't make a puzzle. Like, I just feel like I mean, part of me, like most episode 5s, like we talked about last time, like, dude, just give you everything. So I was like, kind of expecting that, but then I was like, I got none of that. Like, I got like how I used to die and how the Trail of Stars thing. But like, yeah, we know nothing else. Why did the veil randomly break open?
Yeah, my guess was that Kamala, like, the impact of the clandestine weapon on the bangle, plus her whole like spiritual experience, maybe like brought something out of her and opened the veil incidentally.
Did the thing.
I'm wondering why it killed them. Like, why couldn't they just go back? And then
I don't know. And is that just the general? Oh, things could go bad if you open them. Like, is that really it? Like.
No, it went like full Indiana Jones, full Raiders of the Lost Ark, and like Najma seems so convinced that she could just go through. And I know it's that classic villain, like, well, I can do it. No one else can do it, but I can do it, and that leads to
that she was gonna die, but that she was the only one that could close it.
Yeah, that whole scene was really confusing to me. I'm gonna be completely honest.
Got from it because you had the cheesy like, oh, but you have Kamran, go for and then the weird whisper of Kamran. So I got the sense from that both times I watched it that was her kind of having a change of heart and her helping Kamran was sending whatever power she did. Which why? What is that? How does that make sense? And then and that's part of it. I think with the clandestines, we didn't learn shit about them. All we learned is they were from some supposed other dimension. Maybe had powers. We didn't even know that they had powers really, and yet now they're gone for the most part. We didn't learn anything. Anyway, but my I mean, all of this could, in theory, be explained next episode. I'm concerned that they're not going to, and I'm going to be really sad about that. And I don't want to wait for the Marvels or whatever to learn that, because I don't want the whole movie to be explaining Kamala's powers either. Like,
Yeah, because I mean, the Marvels is. I'm glad that Kamala is going to be a major character in it because I think she deserves to be. And I again love Iman Vellani. I'll say that every single episode. But at the end of the day, the Marvels can do some storytelling. I mean, it should do some storytelling with all three of the Marvelous leads. But like, it is still a Captain Marvel sequel, and we haven't seen much of Carol, so I'm kind of hoping we get a lot more time with Carol in that movie. And then like Monica, we've only really had in WandaVision aside from the first Captain Marvel. So there's going to be a lot that it has to do with them. So I mean, it would be nice if like
yeah, and
Paula's origin was at least explained in her.
yeah, because if they were, let's say they were going to do that in the Marvels, like they're like, we're gonna explain her powers. Why? It's such an awkward way to do it because you've built it up to the extent you built it up in the show. So you'd be starting from a really awkward place to explain the rest of it. And I know people complain about having to watch the show to movies, but that would be like a very, I think, most valid like reason there because it's just like, wait, okay, so there's clandestines, but they died, and then she's got this bangle, and she went back in time, and it doesn't make sense. But okay, she's Ant-Man, like I mean, that's still on the table.
Wow. She is Paul Rudd. At the end of the day, that's what this is really.
So Ant-Man's on the table. Okay, and yeah, and now the idea of like, and I didn't think it was really that likely anyway, but the idea of like Carol Danvers showing up in the finale, I'm like, no, I don't even want that because I don't know what's going on. There's too much.
If we were further along in the story, I would say, sure, why not? That'd be cool. Yeah. But at this point, like that's maybe if they decide to do some sort of post-credit scene and everything else is wrapped up, that might be fun, just as like a lead-in. Mm-hmm. But I don't want Carol. There's too much. I need more Kamala.
Yeah, because then there would have all these questions of, okay, where'd you come from? What you been doing?
Where'd you go? Where did you come from? Cotton Eye Joe? Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess I could see a post-credit sequence in theory after we don't learn shit. Saying like, I have some information on that bangle. Come with me. Some weird shit like that.
It's gonna be like we don't learn anything in the finale, and then there's gonna be a post-credit scene where Kamala's chilling in her room. She sees a light glowing outside of the window. She opens it. She's shocked to see Carol, and Carol's gonna be like, "Oh, I see you have the quantum bangles," and then it's gonna like cut to.
And it just gives you the URL for the Wikipedia page or whatever for Marvel Comics.
With like a little caption above it that just says like "Do it yourself."
Yeah. Might be fine if they didn't get into the nitty gritty of every possible aspect of what's going on with her. Because there's a lot, and I get it could be part of the Marvel, so adding it in there. But I want to fucking know, like, rather than just some weird waves and then people dying. Like, okay. I mean, did the editing in the scenes where Aisha, after she was stabbed, and she was like, I guess, summoning Kamala or something. I'm not quite sure. Another example. Where that she had the bangle at that point, because when she did it, it like dropped to the floor and started glowing. So I'm like, did she have it? But I thought Sana had it, and that's not that important, I guess. But actually, it is because it would have to get to Sana. But then, so was the bangle not even part of what helped her do that with Kamala? Or did she talk to the bangle from a slight distance in the train station?
I don't. They're still very much playing it as Mystery Bengal, like, and again, like that seems to
I
be.
don't even know where it was. The editing was so weird. I was like,
yeah.
But is that where? But that could be where the second bangle is, right? Because there were two bangles from Kamala's back in time.
Yeah,
But I
and
guess that's
I made a mental note of that like
yeah.
there were two bangles, and then
Yeah.
all the way up to the train station, there were two bangles, and then one of them one of them was given to the grandma, and then the other one was not. So I don't know.
There were two bangles in the just like generally like Aisha had two.
I thought so.
Oh. I
Aisha
didn't.
had two at one point, and then I think that she gave, unless.
No, because in that
Oh,
first
you're right.
flashback with the 10 rings, they only found the one.
Right, because yeah, I don't know. The editing of that scene was weird.
Thank you. It was weird. I was just like,
I
who is
swear
this?
there was a point where like Sana was holding on to one, and then like the camera cut to Aisha and she still had it, but I'm either going crazy or that was maybe just like a mistake in like the back.
It was weird editing both times. And okay, so if the theory is the bangle that Kamala has is from her grandmother, which is from Aisha, then that's still that very Back to the Future thing, and it wouldn't be two bangles; they'd be the same one, but it'd be so it wouldn't be the second bangle per se. There, like it just doesn't. And that's fine if it doesn't track that reasoning, but it's like that's the reasoning we know of time travel so far. And I'd like it to be relatively consistent because if they're going to do it more, it might be helpful to know about it. But,
Quick side question, just while I'm thinking of it in my head, is Kamala, you said Kamala's grandma is like not really a thing in the comics.
yeah.
So her name probably wasn't Sana in the comics.
I don't believe she had a name. And I've seen other people say that like on Twitter and shit. So I think that is correct.
So my guess, and this is me throwing this into the wind, is that her name is actually kind of a fun Easter egg. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the co-creators of Miss Marvel, like in the comics, and one of the head writers and producers and stuff on the show, is Sana Amanat. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. Probably not, but she's been doing a lot of the like press heavy work for this. In fact, I'm pretty sure that our website had an interview with her. But yeah, but I'm pretty sure that if that's not the grandma's name in the comics, then the grandma was named after the co-creator slash TV writer slash TV producer of Miss Marvel. I just wanted to throw that out there for fun breakdown purposes. But thank you. I am contributing. Yeah, I don't know. I also let's talk about Kamran for a second.
We talked last time. We talked
like,
last time. Like, I don't really care. I don't really care what happens to him. So now it's like, now he's like gonna be one of the main players in the finale of this. Yeah. Like, damn. Cool. He has powers. Why does he have powers? He has powers without a bangle. So what are the power parameters? We don't know. We don't know shit. Why didn't Najma have those powers? Why can she whisper it while dying? And say, no fucking sense. No, that's the thing. Explain that. There's just so much is unexplained. It's not just we don't fully understand the thing, but we don't fully understand the type. We don't fully understand like everything. We are slowly understanding where her costume will come from because now her necklace broken has the little lightning bolt. Woo. She's gonna get her name. We'll find out. But and then Red Dagger gave her the little red thing. Ooh, I'd still like to know like why any difference and stuff. There's for sure if there's not a season 2 announcement, either with like the finale or soon, I would be very. Because Red Dagger's just like, yeah, if I ever happen to see you again.
Oh, and that's definitely the last. Like, he's not going to be in the last episode. It's definitely the last time we see him, at least for a while.
That's what I'm saying. But it's very much like they've left this guy very open in terms of story for her, purposefully. Like they could have just been like, bye, you know. Very much. But yeah, I'll pick Kamran. Kamran can now shoot out of his hands.
I will admit that I mostly wanted to bring up Kamran because I'm somewhat a little bit pumped that my Kamran theory. Listen, I didn't want him to stick around as long as he's sticking around, and I also wish that he was explained better. But I will take credit for saying, since we first saw him, that he was going to be around longer than we thought he would, and that he would eventually get his powers in like a similar way as Kamala. But I mean, it feels like that's because like they show his hand, and when
in a similar way, like I guess in theory it's all connected to the North dimension in some way. Like
that's sort of what I mean, is that like it comes from like the same space, which I know they said earlier, but I think it's gonna look.
We don't really know. We don't know. We don't know.
And I enjoy how frustrated you are by this.
You sent me that picture of what it was, the cruise or something, the Disney cruise, and it had the explanation of her powers on there as like summoned energy from like another dimension, and that's very fucking generic. Like I get it's a cruise, but like that makes me think it's gonna stay generic, and I don't like that. Like I want to know. I want to know what's going on. Just a random dimension that just kills people when they touch it.
For those at home, I found an image this week from the new Marvel Disney cruise, which everything that happens on the Disney cruises are like semi-canonical to the MCU. It's supposed to be like everything in the MCU is exactly the same except in the Disney Parks universe, I think is something like what they call it. The snap never happened. So like somehow, some way, Sam Wilson still becomes Captain America. It's just the snap isn't involved in that, and yada yada yada, whatever. But they've introduced Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, to this cruise, and it's the first like big advertising push for her as being a main player in the MCU outside of this show debuting. And so because those cruises are mostly canonical, any information we get about characters via those cruises can be considered probably most likely the same as it's going to be in like the mainstream MCU. There's an image of Kamala, and underneath her power description, it says that her like official power set is that she summons energy from another dimension, and then it officially describes her powers as hard light, which, if anyone has been listening to this, is Mary's worst nightmare. It seems like that's gonna stick.
And I think part of my general concern with this episode too is part of it's kind of concerned that it's gonna end up being way more generic than I thought it would. And I go through all my theories, and that's fine. I didn't expect like some of them, like the singularity thing. That was just for fun. Like I'm not concerned that didn't happen. It's not that I can't enjoy normal shit, but it's just like it's very creative. It's very mysterious. It's all this stuff, and now I'm like, okay, is it just we're not gonna learn anything more? And it's just like the grandma says, like, I just want to think of it as this. I don't want to think of it as that. I want to think of it as like something that's understandable.
First, I mean,
we're gonna spend a whole series to fucking figure it out, and then it's just like we don't really care. Family, great. I like those themes too, but then those should have been like a line plot. And family was, to be fair, like it was up there, but because it was very connected with the other one. But I think the lighter classic comics Miss Marvel plot could have been the A line with this, like, oh, there's something mysterious going on. And that could have helped it not be as big of a deal if you don't fully go through it. But I feel like there'll be just a big hole in hindsight if they don't do that. Or if it's lame. Like Moon Knight, man. That was my problem with Moon Knight, is it was just very generic at the end. I'm sure it was great for you, and I'm happy for you, but it was just like...
Well, I mean, I enjoyed the finale of Moon Knight, but it wasn't perfectly what I was hoping it would be. I think that Moon Knight and Miss Marvel are sort of suffering from the same problem in that both of those shows started so strong and they started so stylistic and so driven towards figuring out who that main character is, as they should be, because they're origin shows introducing these characters into the greater MCU, and we need that foundation so that we like them in team ups and stuff later on. But and I don't know if it's a symptom of like this, like a studio thing, or if it's a symptom of not getting enough episodes, or whatever it is. But it feels like both of those shows, as they went on, even though they maintain the spirit of it, like I still very much felt this, like the soul of this show existing in this episode, even if I had issues with some of the writing.
And I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I enjoyed like watching it for that purpose. Like, it's a good episode to watch. I mean, the clandestine things from like what's going on, like iffy, but like especially the first part. Like, I like the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Moon Knight and Miss Marvel both start so strong and stylistic, and then by the end, you're right, like it becomes sort of like a generic comic book action thing, which is fine to have that stuff. I mean, I just wrote a Thor review saying how much I love like the comic booky goodness of it, and that's true, and I love that in this show as well. But the comic booky goodness doesn't work if you drop all of the other stuff that made it great as an individual project.
And I think honestly, like, I'm someone who has no problem with like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and that's generic as hell. But it's consistently generic as hell. Like, that's what you sign up for in that show. But I think with Moon Knight and Miss Marvel, I think those are both good examples. And I think Hawkeye was another good example of you're not expecting, like, it's on its face, like, okay, you know what it is. And I think the finale wasn't as like disappointing as some of them.
I actually think Hawkeye had one of the most satisfying. I mean, it wasn't perfect by any means, but for me, I think I was pretty satisfied with the way that wrapped up.
Yeah, and I think and Loki's a good example. Loki was very different and weird, and it did not have a generic finale. It was a little.
And it confirmed the season 2.
I had some problems with it, but like at the end of the day, like it went for it, and I feel like that's what lacked with Moon Knight. Is it did all this very stylistic, very unique, very, I don't know, not larger than life, but like not generic stuff. Like, it had a lot of its own personality, and I felt like in the last episode,
it wasn't afraid to like be a weird show about this character who is like a little off, and if you're gonna do that, that's fine, but you have to stick with it for the whole thing.
And I think that's what I am most concerned about, is that this finale I'm gonna watch and be like, okay, like, sweet story, but I think it's hard because I think the very personal family, like those kind of relationships aspect of the show, are beautifully done. Like, I love it, and I love the mom. She's great in this episode too, even though she doesn't have that much time. Like, all that stuff's great too, and that doesn't. If the finale, let's say, is lame, and I'm not saying it will be, but that stuff won't be. That'll still be there. Like, that will not take away from all the good stuff there. But the whole like kind of superhero plot, I think it will, because she doesn't do much. She hasn't done very much superhero stuff. Certainly not Miss Marvel vigilante type stuff. And so if it ends with she can make her little energy projections and she fought damage control? How do you fight damage control? They're still gonna come after you. Like, how is that?
At this point, the most publicly superhero-y thing she's done. Well, I guess that's not. I would say that maybe the most public thing was the chase scene in the last episode, just because they like tore through Karachi, and that was probably pretty public. But other than that, like, as masked vigilante Miss Marvel, who isn't called that yet, it was still sort of like saving that kid who was falling. I don't know. Are there still any clandestine left? There's
I will. Okay, they only showed 2 of them dying.
Yeah, they showed 2 dying. There's still that dude, right? That like muscular guy.
Yeah, but I don't feel like they really showed him. Like, well, so I mean, after the flashback scene, they kind of all wake up in that space where they were before. But I mean, they show the one lady wake up, and she's the first one to go for it, dead. And then obviously Najma, but they didn't really show anyone else. I don't think they cared. But my take was that they're probably not around, at least. Like, I didn't get the sense that they were lingering characters going forward. I think Kamran's the only one in that realm that we have left that we're gonna get from.
Yeah, I don't know. My greatest hope after this episode in for the finale, I think the thing that gives me the most hope about the finale is the fact that presumably Kamala will be back in Jersey City with Bruno and Nakia. And I know it's a lot to do in one episode, but if there's anything I've really loved, it's been that like Jersey City kids dynamic. And I just hope that if anything, the show can really capitalize on that, go back to that like stylistic intro that it had to the character, and just really lean into this like finale where Kamala comes into her own as sort of this like hometown vigilante superhero and kind of like stakes her claim in the MCU. At least I'm hoping.
I'm not. There's no. I mean, there are like technically. Well, there's technically one villain. I mean,
There's the Department of Damage Control.
Kamran's up in the air, but right now he doesn't act like a villain. But other than that, like, they really like screwed themselves on the villain thing. Like, I don't know, like Damage Control could have been cool, but it's like just to show up in the last episode with like Damage Control, who is not going to be like, oh, you won, we'll leave you alone forever. Yeah, like that's not. It's an odd.
Well,
Villain.
let's do this because this seems to be something we're really good at. Well, let's just like throw out baseless theories
Okay.
about what we think could happen in the finale that would like give us a villain, give us some sort of like final fight, give us some sort of like closure. Here's mine.
You want me to go?
I'll toss one out. You can tell me it's dumb. You toss one out. I'll tell you it's better. And
I just didn't know who's going first.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll do a little like Poe Kylo Ren. Okay. So, what if Kamran, and again, this will come out of left field because they truly have portrayed him as a good guy.
I get it.
In this show. What if Kamran is able to open the veil or close it or whatever, do whatever they're doing with the veil, and in that moment, instead of choosing Kamala and Jersey and her friends and humanity and all that stuff, switches gears, doubles down on the whole like my mom wouldn't have left me behind, like yada yada yada, and sort of becomes like the third act villain. Like he helps Kamala fight off Damage Control. They think it's good. They get to the veil, whatever Norse stuff, yada yada, and then Kamran flips that switch, and suddenly Kamala finds herself fighting Steamy McDreamy, and she doesn't know what's going on. And hear me out. His mom and other clandestine lady who died, when they went to go through the veil, close the veil, whatever they were doing, when they touched it, their bodies are completely coated in Nor, and then they turn into skeletons and then disintegrate into dust. But what if, when Kamran does it, because he actually is able to, potentially with Kamala's help, do whatever that plan was supposed to be, his body gets coated in it, but then he doesn't die. He's just able to like use that as his power, and then Kamala has to fight him while he's like coated in Nor, and then becomes Miss Marvel by the end of it. That's my baseless theory that I'm throwing out there.
Okay. Well, so let's brief summary of my previous baseless theories. Some like basically nameless like star-looking creature was gonna be involved in that participant scene. Captain Marvel would show up in the 1940s. Kamala is Ant-Man. Easy enough. Okay. So I have similar, I think my Kamran thoughts are very similar to you, and this is my least baseless theory as well. So I do think it's hard because it's like, how are they going to do it in one episode? But anyway, let's assume they can. And I do think at the beginning he'll still be like a good guy and he'll want to help or whatever. Maybe they do fight some drones. Or again, what the fuck's the point of damage control? I really don't know. But I agree. So in the comics, I'm basing some of this off comics. It's not totally baseless, I guess. But his thing is, well, he's inhuman, and he's in this kind of faction that thinks they're superior, and they kind of essentially want to kill everybody else except inhumans. So he could kind of come around once he finds out his mom's dead. Maybe he gets extra mad. That seems to upset people. But and kind of go through a similar thing like Kamala, like we're Jim, we're clandestine, we're whatever. Like we should be the ones doing this stuff. And he kind of goes, rah, like you said, and then she has to fight him. I'm conflicted on the veil thing. So I like your theory that they can do it together. I like that theory.
I could even see them like throwing in the other Bengal somehow, some way, and then like Kamran gets it. It's silly, but
I think that's a Marvel's thing. That's where I'm starting to see that. But I don't fucking know. But my issue with the veil is I feel like what they did with the veil is what they're gonna do with it for some reason. Like I feel like they were like, whoa, it didn't work, like we said. And I'm like, but it doesn't seem like that should be it. But I'm a little concerned it is. But I do agree with Kamran switching in the finale from ally to clearly not ally, and that being the final battle. I think that's it. The other option that we can think of would be damage control final battle. Again, I just don't see how that makes sense because there's never a final battle with a government agency out to get you. So, and they haven't been around. So it's like
maybe him and Kamala are doing like a little team up moment to fend off Department of Damage Control, and then Kamran starts getting a little extra violent, and Kamala's like, well, we don't want to kill them, like they're still people, and he's like, no, we gotta murder all of them for, yada yada, and she's like, Kamran, that's not you, and then that like snowballs into something, I don't know.
Or similar, I think Kamran going crazy is our general.
I think that's generally the card they have left to play.
While she kind of fights him, she also kind of has to protect or save a lot of damage control people who are also kind of on the scene in this very general thing. What are you doing?
And Bruno.
Bruno's doing something. He's got a broken arm and a cast right now.
Yeah.
He's going to Caltech. I don't know. But so that could be it. And then Damage Control likes her. And they're like, okay, you're registered. It's Cody Burns. Miss Marvel. I just write it in. Yeah, so now my Miss Marvel name theory has not worked out either, which was somehow there's a misidentification in the 40s.
Although I will say that episode does seemingly bring us one step closer to potentially like her family being involved in her name. Again, I don't know. I feel like there's really no way for her to get this name at this point that's not at least a little corny.
What if it's one of her parents or something trying to be really sweet, like her mom knows now, and her mom knows she loves Captain Marvel, is trying to be really sweet and call her that?
I think that's truthfully like dead serious. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that her mom is going to help make the costume because she saw the necklace and she knows that she loves Captain Marvel.
You're right. That's sweet.
Yeah, and that's going to be the culmination of the like Kamala and her mom arc from the whole season, is that her mom accepts it and helps her become a hero. I think
the first little thing was the outfit argument of growing up as Captain Marvel in the first place. Oh no, that's sweet.
And I like that. I mean,
I don't like the Miss Marvel, but I get their kind of style of it. I get that, but like, and I don't mind the name in theory. It's just I just don't like how it doesn't make sense in context. But I do like that. I do like the kind of the mom theory. And like we talked about though last time, it's not before then. in the comics, her mom knew pretty early on
Mhm.
that she was Miss Marvel, so that's not, confirmed here, I guess, now too. But so does Nakia, so does Bruno. So I don't know if the dad's like the holdout or the brother. I don't know, but that has
Yeah.
been integrated into.
I also to add more support for our Kamran theory is I feel like they have to. This finale, I feel like, is gonna get rid of him somehow, and I think the best way is if you do that comic switch, make him a villain, maybe have him try to kill Bruno, or he almost kills Bruno. Kamala saves Bruno, and then you get him out of the way. You have her realize her feelings for Bruno, and then in season 2, you have Red Dagger move to Jersey, and then you have Love Triangle number 2.
Mm-hmm. I will say, when the Red Dagger comes back to Jersey City in the comics to kind of start that, Bruno was just like he was getting back from Wakanda when he went to go, kind of like Caltech. Like, so if he does that, I think he literally rolls up as he sees them kissing on a roof. Awkward.
So that's what's gonna happen because he's gonna decide to go to Caltech, or Kamal's gonna be like, "You have to go to Caltech," and then he's gonna go, and then he'll come back in season 2 and find Red Dagger.
Mm-hmm. If there's no season 2, there's a lot.
I know. It's crazy. There's so much left. There's so much story left to handle that we are now just operating on a wavelength where we assume season 2 is happening because there's no other way.
Yeah, unless it's just really bad. I hope not. I don't want it to.
Were there any? I feel like this episode, again, for everything that happened in it, was still sort of light on Easter eggs and references,
it
and
wasn't very comic-y. Like, Red Dagger's there, right? You know, like he was.
I attempted to take notes, and I was like, I don't think I need. Nothing really happened that I felt like I wasn't gonna just remember as a general broad stroke.
No, there really wasn't anything. Like the mom finding out, but very different ways, obviously. But I guess that is from the comics. But like, yeah, obviously the whole Noor dimension clandestine thing's not a thing in the comics. So all that's just weird. Conron though with his glowy hand, there you go. And I think also weird editing. I think all he did was like basically shoot a projectile at the drone. I don't think because in the comics his powers are like kind of like he can send like little energy balls somewhere and then they'll explode, kind of like.
Oh, later.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So
he can just make little like energy bombs that he explodes when he feels like.
Yeah, and so I kept trying to watch it. I'm like, I don't think that it wasn't clear that it was anything other than just kind of generic shooting stuff. But.
Yeah, that scene happens really fast, and then on top of it, you have Bruno being like, "You have powers too," and then just cut to black. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much what we can talk about from this episode from our own perspective. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in terms of the fact that they cover partition and some really serious stuff in history from that side of the world. But I feel like myself as a person can't comment too much on that because I know very little about it historically. Thanks, American school system. And also don't have like a personal connection to it. So it's harder for me to like go into that at length. But I will say I like when the MCU uses its platform to like go back and talk about real things. So
yeah, and they don't often do that. So I thought that was pretty that they went. They to the extent I'm not arguing that they went. They obviously did not go heavy into it, but they laid it out like a real event that happened. Great. The little newsreel is. I was like sitting there. I'm like, it's a very interesting take, Marvel.
I don't know what it is about newsreels that always make it feel more realistic, even though they're like old timey. Yes. It's like terrible things are happening, and you're like, oh, that must have actually happened.
But because thinking of Marvel, like you had World War II in the first Avenger, right? And like, but that was very.
But who doesn't know about World War II?
No, exactly. But it was still very campy, glamorized, like very fictitious because all of it involved.
That was a serious thing.
Yeah. Whereas the partition story, I mean, you obviously had the Bengal issue going throughout it, so like that did, certainly wasn't just a straight up, sort of partition story. But I mean, a lot of it, wasn't. I was surprised and glad that they acknowledged like a major world event. To the extent they did it great, again, I agree with you. I can't speak to it, but they just don't do that. Even in situations like you have like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, obviously like they really wanted to put sort of like American historical like race issues in it, and they kind of would like be like dabbing them in there, but usually in like fictitious like circumstances. Like I forgot his name, but
I mean they like dabbled a little bit with the Bradleys and what did they say? Korean War, Vietnam War, somewhere. Yeah.
And so like, glad good they touched on it, but like the super soldier's not a real person. Like so, and so they don't fully like show or really acknowledge a lot of world events that are obviously quote controversial, whatever you want to call it. But they did, and to be fair, I don't know. To be fair, I'm trying to think how I'm phrasing it. It's one. I think Marvel Studios, had they not had appropriate people writing and making the show, probably should not have done. But they did, so it's okay. But
right.
I mean, that would be a bold take. Like we're gonna go for competition, and the political and whatnot over there. And, I mean, area of the country. I mean, I was in a human rights project when I was in law school, and I went to India, and that's like all we studied was like that sort of political situation that's right there. And it's not great. I mean,
it's not great.
It's not nothing that they put out something. To be fair, they didn't take sides, obviously, but they still put out something that made it look not pretty, which it isn't.
I'll be honest. It felt pretty anti-British, which which is fair. I think we can all get behind that one. But like,
I meant India, Pakistan, Hindu Muslim thing, but yeah, British, yeah.
And to your point of saying that if they didn't get the right writers and creative team, they probably shouldn't have tackled it. I also don't think if you don't get the right people making a show, like if you don't have this creative team making Miss Marvel, I don't think you have them tying her powers into partition. Like that's not like if it was a bunch of white dudes in a room, like none of them are thinking, what if we dive into partition? Like they're looking at the comic and being like, how do we make it?
They're looking at the comic.
They're looking at the comic and they're like, what's cool about Jersey? Like that that's where their head is at. But like when you get the right people making it, then it opens up all of these doors because they have that knowledge and that personal connection, which I think is so important.
No, we get much more creative and vibrant and obviously unique and different stories than the rest of what the MCU generally puts out, and we're getting more of that because I think they're figuring out we can make good content if we let more people get involved. Classic thought process there. But so I agree, and I mean I love the show for that. I want to know what the fuck her powers are. Like that's
it. That's the main question.
It is.
That's the question the show put forward at the beginning and has still yet to answer.
It is, and there's so many little things, Hunter. There's so many little things. When she first activated the bangle, she kind of did that weird. I don't know if it was time travel at that point, but she kind of did that cool fall backwards scene, and it looked like that was probably partition, but kind of weirdly purple and stylized. But like, why did she do that? Like, was she exactly like just? I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
So I know we talked about the Disney Cruise thing and how that's I don't know. I don't remember what word you used. It was something along the lines of like lazy or generic or something like that. But
generic.
Because in the comics, her inhuman ability is not technically on a technical basis isn't stretching, isn't it? Like teleporting
No,
through
it's cool.
like
It's cool. It involves time travel, and that's kind of where a lot of my
right.
thoughts were.
And
Yes, she was always borrowing, like essentially her own like cells and like mass from like past and future selves.
Yeah.
But I mean, so she's according to the cruise, summoning energy from another realm. I mean, kind of similar.
Yeah, that's like, even though it's not quite as cool as that, I feel like that is them attempting to reach into the same spirit of it and be like, yeah, it's not technically stretching, it's like borrowing energy from elsewhere.
They could still make it. I don't know if they still can, but in my mind, they could still make it the quantum realm, though, and make it a bit more connected to everything else. The thing I think generic, and not that everything has
It's a
to
good
be
MacGuffin.
like we always, yeah, it like it would make sense with time travel, and especially if you could argue, okay, she drew energy from Aisha, whatever she was doing in the past, to go do that or whatever. Like it could work, and it could help it make sense. Because if you want it to be something completely unique that's only shared by Kamala, fine, but make it a thing. Like give it
Right.
a real like.
If you're gonna change her powers to make it more connected to the MCU, then connect it to the
Yeah,
MCU.
that was their whole thing. That's true. That's true. That's true. That was their whole thing. Was they were going to do it so it fit with the MCU and what they wanted to do. So there's no way. But that makes me think maybe we're not gonna fucking find out till the Marvels, and that's
Yeah.
boo.
All they have to do is drop that word quantum, and it
I
makes things make
know.
a lot more sense. Because and it again, like, if we wanted to connect to the MCU, they haven't explicitly tied Captain Marvel to anything quantum per se in the MCU, but in the comics, Captain Marvel's lore does have like the quantum bands. That word is connected to Captain Marvel in
Yeah.
her slash his initially in the comics, but later
Marvel.
her.
And Marvel.
Yeah, Marvel.
I
Um,
think.
exactly. So you have that connection, which I feel like they're gonna want to do, and then one of the next. I mean, we have Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, but then after that, one of the next big Marvel movies is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which will presumably dive more with Kang, which will presumably dive more into the quantum realm and time travel and all that fun stuff. So it feels like if you're gonna do that with Kamala and you're gonna
Yeah. Because the Marvel comes out after that. So if we do all the fun Quantumania or whatever, and then it's like later, it's like, oh, come on, so this
that's what I'm saying. Is like, if you wanna connect her to that corner of the Marvel universe, like, now's the time, because it's gonna be
yeah,
weirder if it's later.
make her part of Ant-Man 3. I get that, but like, if you
Yeah,
do connect her to the same concept, yeah, just throw the word quantum there at some point, honestly.
just like thematically what they're turning the next saga, like this like quantum multiverse saga that they're building in phase 4 to follow the Infinity Saga. If like now is when you can hook her into that, if you're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Bruno to roll up. He's like, okay, I've done some more calculations on whatever he's calculating.
I looked into Tony Stark's final research.
It
Yeah.
seems pretty quant to me. I've looked up Hank Pym's research.
I looked up Hank Pym. I looked up how do they know
I assume
does so
not. I assume not. I wrote a little feature on this. I assume they can't know, like the public can't know if that's what you're asking about, like time travel.
yeah, because
Yeah.
they know a lot.
How many pissed people there'd be like, why didn't you just go back and fix all of it, you pieces of shit?
Yeah.
Like, like there's no way people are just like chill about that.
Because they know enough. I mean, in Multiverse of Madness, random doctor who knows Nicodemus West knows that Doctor Strange is the one who made the call.
Yeah.
So like he knows that. So that's got to be somewhat public knowledge.
I wonder who someone totally just sat down and said, listen, here's what happened.
Scott Lang on his podcast.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have even necessarily known about that part. So it's like, that's the thing. There's just, that's something they're never going to explain is how people know.
Yeah.
So they should do a series only. They should do a document, like a mockumentary series on how people found out about it. I
would actually watch that. That would
I
be
would.
fun. We could make that. Yeah, no, I just for all the things that they know about Endgame and Infinity War and like the intimate details of how things with Thanos went down, it's funny to me that somehow the fact that the surviving Avengers traveled through time to fix everything is like the one detail that has slipped public knowledge. And
like,
you'd think that if Scott was spilling the beans,
and
you'd think that if Scott was spilling the beans, that would be everywhere because that was his idea.
Yeah.
He would tell everyone that he saved the universe.
And you'd think even if he knew he wasn't supposed to, he'd be the guy that would say he'd be the Tom Holland of time.
Yeah, no, he'd be on his podcast like, I don't mean to brag, but I did save the universe, and that would just be his thing. And he would be funny about it, like not in a douchey way. Yeah.
The other option is they know that they did something like that, but were told whatever that it's like not something you can do again, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but there's no way people could think that there exists time travel technology and are just like chilling. I wouldn't be chilling. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. No, I would be I'm already in a constant state of anxiety. I would be if all of this was happening in this timeline, I would be a mess all the time. I'd be like, nothing matters. Like nothing matters. Everything is possible. I don't know what's going on. I'd just be banking on getting powers accidentally, and then like, I don't know. Well,
I'm banking on.
I feel like that just about covers this episode and our theories. And I'm honestly like, even though I feel like it has potential to be a train wreck, I'm really excited going into the finale just because I want to see if even one of our theories comes true.
Hey, time travel came true though.
Time travel did come true. Listen, everybody, thank you for watching us on a weekly basis, especially you, Adam. I'm really glad that you're all here because I know that I sure am. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed our breakdown / review / theory pitches for Miss Marvel episode 5. Mary, assuming there's nothing else you want to talk about, I think we could probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, great. I have been one half of your host, Hunter.
I have been the other half of your host, Mary.
Thank you all for watching. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.